Hello everyone, we are very happy to participate to the ARUP event. I'm Anthony, there is Guillaume. We are very sorry to not be with you because of the distance and the difference of the time zone. We are currently located in Geneva, in Switzerland. So we send to you this video with our lecture. So let's go on. We will talk to you about Web3 and mixed reality.
So first of all, we would like to introduce ourselves. So we are both of us like a researcher and teacher at Helleu University. And on the side, we also like develop our own studio where we mainly focus on the creation about any type of project regarding like Web3 technology, from like cryptocurrency, NFT, DAO, metaverse. So
if you need it, don't hesitate to contact us.
For example, we work on the open source project to try to represent and to map kind of the blockchain technology ecosystem through a series of font and a pictogram that you can see on the right.
It will be released in 1 month.
So yes, release will be very soon, and you can already have like the chance to have like a quick view of this project. So the session today will be like divided in 5 different chapters. So first, we're going to speak to you about like Ethereum a bit, about what is this technology and how is it like a revolutionary. We're going to do the same in terms of Web3 technology, which has been like a big buzzword this last year. We'll go on with metaverse, then mixed reality, and finally we'll see like, I guess, the topic that will be more interest for you. It will be how like all this first chapter will be helping to develop what we call impossible architecture, or new type of architecture that we are going to see in the coming years.
The goal is to give you an overview of the current technology who affect both design and architecture professions. We are aware that every of you guys knows already about blockchain, or some of you may be not involved into architecture, maybe you are designers, but what we are going to present to you is very open and it involves a large scope of things.
So let's start with Ethereum protocol. So first, we're going to do like kind of a history background. As Anthony said, like we are in Geneva, and in Geneva, like 30 years ago, one of the biggest inventions that completely transformed all of society have been invited there. It's what we all know as the web. So the web is like a Swiss French invention. And of course, this web have like kind of a problem, or at least a tiny issue. It's the impossibility to create any kind of digital uniqueness.
Yeah, you can think of the copy-paste. When you got a file, it's very easy to duplicate it. And if it's easy to duplicate, it's difficult to give it value.
For example, every time you are going to send like kind of a file of a document online, this document will be all the time like kind of a replicate. When you're sending a mail, you replicate the information, and this is fine, but this can be like creating kind of issue when we want to create kind of a value on internet. So this was impossible for a very, very long time. And this issue has been solved for the very first time in 2009. With the invention of the well-known now technology, which we call like blockchain technology. So blockchain technology resolved this issue with a very complex protocol. And the first thing that, and this blockchain technology have been like invited and by a group, a political group of persons that we know them as a cypherpunk. That's, of course, they are very political person that advocate, of course, protect privacy, the free speech, and the data security on internet. And all these person, in reaction to the financial crisis in 2008, developed their own currency and tried to solve this issue of uniqueness. So they developed like blockchain technology, and at the same time, of course, they developed like Bitcoin. But before going into like this kind of crypto aspect, we want to come back about what we mean by Web3, because of course blockchain opened the gate of what we will know as Web3. But before arriving to this version of the internet, it's important to remember where we came from. So, so if like first we came from like from Web 1. So Web 1 was the first iteration of the web. It was what we call like the web of information. You go on the internet to consume information, to read things, but you do not necessarily interact with it. This was the very, very first type of the web. And from this web, we switched to a new version of it that we name Web 2.0, a web that we are still today. And this web is very well known with the blog and the social interaction. It's a web working through the economy of exchange. So this web I've seen grow like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the very mass media have been raised in this internet and this version of the web. And this worked pretty well. The issue here is like all the data and all the value of this version of internet is completely like gathered and completely like scrapped by very few people that we also well know as GAFAM or BATX for the Chinese version. And these people, of course, like collect all the data, collect all the money, and the web that have been, first of all, think as a complete democratic and open world has been completely like danced to a very single point of to the end of very few people. And this is where the Web3 arrived. Web3 aimed to reopen the web to all these people and try to give back the power of the internet and to give back the power of the web to all the users that will be worldwide. So it's type of hypothetic, but as we are going to see, it's already well implanted. So this Web3, it's going to develop through 5 main points, 5 main very important keystone that we can see them as a roadmap. First of all, it will be the implementation of the cryptocurrency for this system, so a monetary system for this Web3. This has been done in the very first time in 2008, with 2009 with Bitcoin. And now you all know that there is already like plenty of different cryptocurrency and crypto assets. Then when we just establish like this monetary system, we need to have like an economic and financial system. This is a part of DeFi for decentralized finance. And this aim to cut like all the power from the bank and centralized system and to fluidify like all the kind of economic interaction. So DeFi is a very huge and very important aspect of the economic of the internet. When you have like the monetary system and the economic protocol, you will be able to exchange properties. And this is the role of NFTs. So we'll go back into NFTs a bit later, but as you have to keep in mind, NFTs have been worldwide known for this JPEG, but as you can keep in mind, it's way more than only JPEG. It can be thought as any kind of property, digital property, from passport, identity, certificate, real estate, social share, any kind of thing that we want to be unique. So from the money system to the economic to the asset that we exchange, then the system is gonna be like governed by what we name like DAO for decentralized autonomous organization. And this is gonna be like one of the very, very hot topics for the next 5 years. It's the way that how we can govern and how we can create supra-etatic state and people that are way above like any kind of government. And this is extremely interesting, and I will detail this also a bit. And finally, the most complicated project and also the most hot subject and topic for this Web3 will be regarding the identity. will be regarding first like digital identity, which is like an old subject, but mainly like decentralized identity. And this is where come like DID for decentralized identifier, which will regarding how do we exist online? What is our identity online? How do we exist through this kind of avatar, and how do we protect our data that have been now like scrapped by, as we said, like the GAFAM. So again, all these five very important topic, and all these five keystone, it's what's defined today as Web3. So if you try to summarize a bit like what Web3 is important for the future and what Web3 will bring to us, we can part of the many different aspects, but two of them are what we believe it's the key element. It's first the digital property that allow the production and exchange of digital assets, which was impossible before 2009, and this revolutionized completely the way that economic work online. And secondly, it's interoperability that's going to enable a seamless and dynamic interaction of closed environment. So now if you want to create interaction about what's happened in one server, private server to another one, it's quite impossible because of the way that they are being built, and Web3 will help on that. So now like Anthony is going to detail us a bit the technology behind this Web3 and the technology like behind Ethereum mainly.
Yeah, we are still in the first half of our lecture, but then we will see the implications for the design and architecture fields, so don't worry. Ethereum appears in 2015 as an update of Bitcoin at first, but then it evolved into an autonomous project, and it's way beyond the monetary aspect. There is three layers of Ethereum, three main functions. First, tokens, who can represent money, of course, but also social part, or a votation, or a ticket concert. So it's very large. Then smart contracts. It's very important to be aware of smart contracts, who are kind of scripts who are executed on a blockchain. And thanks to smart contracts, you can automate a lot of things. We can see some examples later. And the third layer is dApps for decentralized applications. Everyone knows mobile apps, for example, Uber or Airbnb. It's the same things, but on the blockchain. So thanks to the blockchain, you can avoid the data scraping. Guillaume was said some words about this problem. With dApps, the users are in control of their data and on the way the information are exchanged on the network. So the first brick is are the tokens. Tokens are units of digital value, and they can be a lot of things, such as currency, real estate, stocks, loyalty, programs, and so on. So you can invent your own economic system, to be short. It's a little bit complicated because there is a lot of functions related to blockchains. They are not exclusive one from each other. For example, you can have a token who is both a work of art and both a property of a flat in Geneva or in Beijing, for example. So this is very huge. Smart contracts, I already said some words about this. Thanks to smart contracts, you can have a very reliable system. You can verify very easily if things are done and where the transactions are going and for what. Because the rules are written on a blockchain, and everyone who have the skills to do it is able to verify every field of the network, every state of the network. dApps, we can skip it. It's the most important. And then with the Web3 ecosystem opened by Ethereum, we can wonder if our lives can be impacted by this. For example, in London, you can have your salary by week. In France, is by months. In Switzerland, is the same. but thanks to blockchain, it can be very different. For example, you can have your salary in every millisecond. And what can be a society where the time impact as such the politics? So we can think about the implications of this chronopolitics. One example is the movie In Time, in French, Time Out, which is a sci-fi movie where the humanity doesn't spend money but pay with time. So the poor people are people who have to work to stay alive, because if you are in zero, you die. You can see here, example, a screenshot of the film.
So from like this kind of dystopic example of how like blockchain and Web3 technology can be applied, we're going to dive in a bit about the 5 different bricks of Web3 very quickly. And then we're going to show you like how this can be used like as an everyday project and what will be the implication mainly on architecture. So first, yes, we said like cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, it's part of the game now. It's part of the society and is not going to move anywhere else. It's very important because like cryptocurrency redefines the way that we think about money. We have like a lot of instability in terms of economic crisis all around the world, and cryptocurrency appear to be like kind of a help from most of the society, even if now it's redefined the way that we define the currency. As example here, we have like kind of a new kind of definition of money thanks to the cryptocurrency, where we can have like what we call the fiat. So for the government currency, what we know like Hong Kong dollar, franc Swiss or euros or dollar, whatever. And even if most of the cryptocurrency have been like attacked and critiqued from government already took the opportunity to switch to this digital era by using the technology himself, which is like blockchain technology, to create their own digital currency. This is what we name like CBDC, for digital government currency. And there is already like only one project that existing today, which is like the money from like Bahamas. But there is also like a project developing with the digital yuan in China and the digital dollar in US. This will be very, very tricky in terms of democratic way, because of course it would be very critical, but this is something that we are going to look very closely for the development in the future. Then you probably heard about like stablecoin, another kind of money that is basically like a cryptocurrency that have been like anchored on like a real outside value, which can be like a gold, dollar, or whatever. And this help to fluidify like transaction online. And this is a huge saving money because you don't have any fees anymore. And anyway, it's very important part of this new form of economic. Then the token, as I'm not going to dive in again, as Christophe already detailed, Anthony already detailed it. And as you know, like cryptocurrency, part of Bitcoin. So the idea here is to explain that the economic system that we understand today, the way that money is defined is going to be completely transformed and is already completely transformed with this Web3 and blockchain revolution. So everything that we know as today as to be engraved into the marble is going to be changed a lot in the 5 to 10 coming years. Decentralized finance, we could name only one project, for example, like Uniswap. Uniswap is a decentralized platform, trading platform that worth like billions of dollars and allow anybody around the world without any restriction or any censorship to trade any kind of currency and cryptocurrency around the world without being able to be censored. So this is actually a powerful tool that already is completely developed and working perfectly well. And this project is also working through like a TO, which I'm going to come back later. So non-fungible token, of course, like the big subjects, the big topic that have been completely part of our life from 2019 to 2021. Of course, it was a very, very busy project. We all knew and saw this kind of picture. So let's be honest, this was like kind of huge hype with people trying to sell like a useless JPEG, because it's important to say that 99% of NFT, at least what we saw online and on the media, was useless. That's perfectly true. But what we need to remember and to keep in mind, it's this kind of JPEG use only 1% of the technological power. If you dive in like how like NFT work and what are the potential of NFT, you really realize that actually 99% of the technological possibility and potential is not used at all. And there is very few projects that exist. We can name, for example, like a Noun DAO, Bauto, we can name like the Lost Poet, plenty of it, which has quite a niche project. But all these projects propose something that is impossible to do otherwise that using Web3 and otherwise that using NFT. So you need to think as NFT in terms of the art field, because like NFT can be applied in any kind of field, but like the art field is the sector that have been mostly concerned by NFT last year. You have to keep in mind like a conceptual art. This is like a Biennale pie, and the question here is to think where is the artist. You see here like two computers. One is developing like kind of virus to the computer behind, and the computer behind try to develop like the antivirus. So they have this interaction between the two computers. The question is to define where is the art. Is the art take the form of these two computers, these two physical pieces of computer, or is the art, it's more into the page on the left, which describes the protocol. And this word of protocol is very important because this is defined what we name like smart contract and what we call like the code behind. And the aim of Web3 and what NFT is going to develop is the fact that tomorrow artists won't be like JPEG artists that's selling like JPEG on the form of NFT, but will be like developer and net guy and digital artists that going to dive in and interact with smart contract and coding to create new form of art, extremely complex in terms of interaction, to create like new form of art and experiences. And as again, this already exists through the form of many, many different projects, as we already mentioned.
And as we will see later, we can have the same question for your fields in ARUP. So where is the architecture? Where is design? We will see this later.
Yes, exactly. Quickly, organization. We know that, for example, in architecture field, it can be sometimes very tricky to interact with other studios, to interact with all of these different fields of work. And the collaboration, it's probably something that's going to be very important to the architecture field, like all like small studio can combine together and to develop like new form of creation without giving back like the IP of the intelligence of any kind of project. And this is where like DAO arrive, because they create like very fast and very quick form of governance from a group when we can invite it like kind of user, customer, client, professional to vote and to interact about the same project and to give them more or less power. All this is parameterized, and we can, of course, craft this as wish.
For example, we know you are 17,000 members of ARUP, which is a lot. And thanks to a DAO, you can, I think, improve your system. But you can call us if you want to talk about this.
Last subject, quickly, digital identity with decentralized identifier. Very important. As we said, we know that when you go online, when you log in on any kind of website, previously we were going to ask you like to sign up with your mail and password, thing that we don't do since like 5 or 10 years ago now. Now everybody is logging through like the Google sign-in, Facebook sign-in, Apple sign-in. But when you're doing that, of course, you are giving like all your kind of information, and you are already being profiled by this kind of company without having any kind of power about the information that you are giving them. And also you have a kind of problem of privacy, and of course, it's not very secure online. This is where arrive like the Web3 wallet and MetaMask, and digital identity is also the giving place where the use of avatar. How do we exist online? How do we represent ourselves online? And what is the limit between the physical identity and the digital identity? And this will be very interesting, and we are going to see how this is also applying to architecture. What is the limit between the physical and the digital architecture when we are speaking about like gaming? But this is our later subject. This is where we arrive to the metaverse. And
yeah, metaverse, it's a huge buzzword. We can have a look at its history to begin. In fact, even if it's a buzzword, it's an old word. It appears in 1970s and 1990 in a lot of sci-fi novels or books. For example, Philip K. Dick or Neil Stephenson. The first mention was in Snow Crash in the 90s. Here you have a short history of metaverses, and it's important to keep it in mind because behind the hype there is a huge history and a lot of failure. And it's like Facebook, which we named in Meta some years ago, is 1 year ago, sorry, is going to erase this history. Metaverse can be defined like this, like an addition of immersion VR, virtual reality technology, such as Oculus headsets, plus the web. Web is a mix of leisure and work, and it's a kind of immersive web to be short. But it could be more like that. It could be also an hybridation between the digital world and the physical world. So there is, I think, a kind of a problem when you think metaverse only as a digital world, because you lose a lot of things, and we will see some example who mix both tangible world and digital world. Here an example of Meta Horizon, which is already a failure. We will see if it will continue or not, because nobody wants to use it, even the people who work for Facebook. It released 1 year ago, and there is it's kind of a demo still. But there is a lot of ads and a lot of money is spent of this world, but it's a closed world, and it's the opposite of the Web3, as we explained just before. And it could evolve into a dystopian area or space. We can think about the movie Ready Player One, released 4 years ago, where people are living in kind of suburbs in a very poor environment, and their only hope is to live into the digital environment with headsets. Things we can see in the real world today. Here it's a true photo, true picture was taken in Los Angeles two years ago, where homeless people is exploring another environment, maybe for him more appealing than is true environment. So there is a spectrum from Disneyland to virtual shopping malls, and we can wonder, do we want to live into an area, even if it's digital, where there is only things to buy, where there is nothing else to buy? A kind of a capitalist dystopia area. And keep in mind that there is a big problem into the Web2 environment, because the GAFA and the BATX are exploiting us with a lot of taxes. For example, if you sell an app on the App Store of Apple, Apple will take a cut of 30%, which is a lot of the value created. And thanks to the Web3, we can escape of these intermediaries and communicate directly to the public. And we avoid also the censorship. So in short, today, metaverses are still far from their promises, which we can read on the sci-fi novels. And it's disappointing. Metaverses are mostly limited to digital environments, such as video games, and we are still we still wonder what could it be and what and how can they be more interesting.
This is why, like in our studio, we believe that the future will be more like mixed, and basically like mixed reality than a perfectly and entire like immersive space. We want to be in contact to the reality. We want to be like in contact to the physical world, and this is where like mixed reality arrive, because it's give and it provide like a new layer of information. This new layer, it will be give through kind of technology like AR technology and VR technology, of course, but it also gives a way to customize like any kind of space or any kind of interaction as wish. So everything is going to blurry the way that we have like a common perception of the world, where everything will be customized from individuality, and this will be kind of amazing to experience this kind of space.
Yeah, it have deep implications for the design and architecture field, because not everyone will look the same building. For example, you see the Eiffel Tower, everyone see the same Eiffel Tower. But in the metaverse, it's not true. Depending of your background, your social classes, your ethnography, your ethnicity, it can be really different.
This, of course, it's bound with this completely booming industry, which is the VR technology, which is on the rise for like quite a long time now. And we see that the implication of VR is not necessarily where we think of them. Of course, we have video game, but now it's more like kind of physical gaming, and it's more like related to the sports industry. And we see like in the sport industry, it's start to give kind of new layer or new interaction. We all keep have in mind, for example, like kind of simulator, sport simulator, when, for example, you play like a golf and you have like kind of screen where you shoot on it. And here you have like kind of interaction where you physically are exhausted, but you experiencing this in the virtual space. An example of this is kind of a project that is in France. It's named like EVA. And as you can see, we are like in physical space, a real space. It looks like an area of any kind of sport, but people are interacting in a virtual world. So kind of digital twin, but it's not a twin, it's just a new space around. With this kind of interaction, this is like kind of very important picture. As you can see, you have people around that don't understand what's happening, but we have like kind of a screen of a layer of interaction that allow us to understand what's happening in this kind of virtuality. So here in terms of architecture, we see like the bound between like the virtuality and the physical space at the same point, and with existing project. And this project is working pretty well. So we will arrive in a new type of world of this mixed reality, where of course, like even a body, even our space will always create this kind of blurry definition between these two types of perception. And the idea, of course, is to blur this this boundary, to give to people like where is the limit of this. To that, we have keep in mind like video gaming and cinema. As you all know, like now, gaming is even more and more realistic by using like Unreal 5 render that it's well used in architecture, but it's also very well storytelling. I mean, the story is very nice. So like the gaming is going very close to cinema, and on the other way, cinema is using CGI a lot, and CGI go back to the virtuality. So this blurry between these two sectors, it's what we are going to see in the architecture sector between like physical space and the virtual and digital space.
And keep in mind that there is a huge progress about the hardware. For example, the Oculus headset is opaque, but very soon we will have headsets who are connected by the physical environment, because they are transparent or opaque. We can mix both, and the same for the gloves. You will not have to interact with joystick. You can interact directly with your brain or with your hands, but without joysticks. So it will be more and more easier to use.
So we can see here, for example, like example of how we can already interact with this kind of physical space, and to give like a new layer, extra layer of virtuality on top of it. I think you all know like the game like Pokemon Go, that has been also like a huge sociological like event 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But we can dive to a very concrete and very specific example. On the left, you have like kind of a real picture of the real race happening in Monaco, it's a F1 race. And on the right, you have a race, same in Monaco, but this happening in a game. You see that first, the progress in technological will make them, these two pictures, look alike very soon. And what Web3 and what blockchain and what mixed reality can provide is to bind these two experiences at the same time. What, for example, we can imagine and what we can do and what at the studio we work to try to develop is to do the race at the same time. So for example, like let's imagine that we have like the physical race and people on their TVs are going to watch the race happening in real time in Monaco. And at the same time, we're gonna have the race on the game online. But on the game online, we can replicate the real car on site into the game by using tracker, physical tracker on the track to replicate online. So the person that are going to race online, they're going to race against the physical racer in live at instant moment. And on top of that, we can also take the position of the digital and the virtual car and to insert it in the reality through VR headset and through AR technology. So for example, any kind of racer could have like kind of transparent screen when we replicate, or in terms of the goggles, they replicate like the virtual car. So we can create like brand new form of experiences that we can see here in Ready Player One, where the physical and the digital, they are completely bound together to create like new form of experiences and new form of feeling and emotion that haven't been produced before. So this hybridization will allow to abstract from like physical body and to materialize one in a virtual environment. And when we mean by body, we also mean like spacing, object, any type of thing. And to do that, we're gonna need to use like the Web3 as a way to make sure like data it's right and data it's interoperability.
And if you want to sell digital files, you need Web3, obviously, as we saw completely just before with NFTs.
So Web3, it's of course like this buzzword, but it's also like the background layer of technological that will allow all these examples. And finally, we arrive to this question of impossible architecture. So, of course, we show you like how metaverse is also, it's always like kind of a replication of the space, but we see it's much more than this. So first, there is this idea of architectural simulation, how we can use data, like data to simulate and to replicate architecture. We see here an example of photogrammetry, but we also have this very, very famous game, which is Fly Simulator, where they replicate the entire world. So basically, you can fly in live with the weather in live, any place around the world, because they replicate the full Earth, which is quite amazing in terms of development. Maybe most well-known, like the gaming, like Assassin's Creed, where they replicate Paris. And as you all know, like Notre Dame de Paris have been a disaster because they have been burned like 2 years ago. But they have been helping through like photogrammetry and 3D scanning and digital twin, that this have been helped like architects to propose the project to rebuild it at exactly the same way. So we're going to see like in the future, like replication of the reality of city, of architecture, that we're going to have a life in video gaming, they're going to be alive online. And that's way when an architect is going to, the aim of the architect is today to build like a physical building, we can ask ourselves, it's in the future, architect won't design like virtual world only, and this is what we're going to see like yeah.
And there is deep implication for the cities, of course, because for the tourists, it's an argument if the town is on the video game or not. You can think about GTA, which is inspired by New York or Miami, and a lot of people know the States, the United States, thanks to these kind of games.
And economically, this is also a big game changing. I think like me as an architect, my first way that I interact with architecture was Sims. You know, this very old game, and this is where you start to build your house, you build your kind of interaction. So people interact with architecture through the early age, through, for example, this game. The thing is, of course, as you can see, the design is not like very architectural design, and we can wonder why architects do not take this opportunity to design virtual space. As you probably don't know, but the gaming is the most biggest sector on earth. It's twice movie and cinema, movie and music combined. So it's a very huge sector, and we can ask ourselves why is it like not architect designing space for this this environment? And here we are speaking about video game, but we can also speak about video conferencing. As you all know, COVID was like a big thing, and COVID helped us to develop this kind of video conferencing system. And yeah, as you can see here, we interact more and more in terms of through this media. And as you see, like for example, the platform Zoom try to simulate space, like background space, like a fake one. And was wonder, but can't we like architect, like design this kind of background, design like craft space in this specific purpose, and said what will be the result for this? As the demand is high, you know, we're speaking about a space that's probably going to be seen by millions of people like every day through this kind of interaction. So it's a space that's going to be lived virtually, but much more than any other physical building.
Which is funny because we are doing our lecture from the campus of Genève, and which is a very big and beautiful campus, and you see only a very small part of it thanks to our true background. But there is still a project to be made about what could be the virtual space or the Zoom space of a school like Helleu, for example.
It's a question of representation, which is very important now, as the way that we dress and as the way that we present ourselves through, for example, this background of library background. So this is how we simulate the architecture, but another interesting part is how this virtuality can create new kind form of spatial creation. I think you all know this game, which is Monument Valley. It has been like very important like a few years ago, and you try to develop impossible architecture. And this is where it's very important. We believe in our studio that metaverse, if they try to replicate the reality, it will be like a failure, because nobody wants to live in the replication of the reality because they want to live in the reality itself. But if you try to add a new layer of hybridization, as we said, or if you try to provide or to offer a new form of space, this will be extremely important. For example, this is a project that tried to project a 3D space into a spherical projection, which kind of space cannot be understood without the virtuality and without, for example, using like a goggle. So this is like a projection on a 2D screen. So you see, it's tried to open a door to architects to a new form of architecture, like impossible architecture. And this is extremely important. We also have like how we can trick the mind to kind of impossible thing that we can't do. And this can be used to video gaming, which can be very important, and can also be used in any kind of virtual interaction. So as you can see here, is like two corridors. One is condensed and one they are this kind of.
It's a kind of spatial shortcut, if you want.
Yes. The most interesting thing is this. You can see like there is two foreplane, and they are going to create like superposition of space. You can imagine that when you want to interact in terms of virtual space, you are limited to the area that you can circulate. And of course, if you imagine like an empty room of 100 meters square, you won't be able for now to interact in a space, virtual space that is bigger than 100 meters square. But with this possibility, as you can see here, we can interlap space all together. So we can simulate and you can trick the mind to make people believe that they are in the open world when instead they are in a closed space and the closed world. This is very important. But if you try to get back like virtuality, this can be like use case in this physical world too. This is kind of very unique project of a boat. It's a research boat for scanning the bottom of the ocean that we call a RV flip. And to design the space, as you can see, there is two positions of the boat. And obviously the space inside have been to be thought in these two different positions, which creating kind of very weird space where you can see a shower on the wall and towels on the floor. So we don't really understand this kind of space, what's happening. And it's also let us think and try to integrate ourselves that where is the plan? What is the plan in this space? Is it the wall or is it the floor? If I come back, there is actually two different plans and there is two different sections. So in terms of representation, architectural representation, we know that probably only virtuality will be able through like a 3D model to represent this kind of space. Blocking a portal also important in terms of virtuality and impossible space. So this is a knock of 4D space interlap all together. So we can create this kind of new kind of emotion, as we believe architecture is emotion giver. And it's important to say, okay, how do we live in this space? How can we interact? What kind of thing we can live if we imagine like a virtual event, virtual concert in Fortnite? It could be amazing in this kind of crazy space. And if you want to go like even to craziness, this is like a representation of Azure space into a spherical curvating projection in hyperbolic space. So extremely hard to understand what's happening. It's kind of wrap space, but it's very interesting the way that we can feel these elements. And then there is this idea of a mathematical space about 4D dimension. So this is what you are going to see, like a 4D dimension project on a 2D screen that interact in the 3D simulation. So it's kind of the top of the cherry on the top. But it's very important to how we can create this kind, again, this kind of impossible space that in this kind, we cannot interpret this, we cannot build this space. We cannot even do a physical model of it. The only way to feel and to interact this 4D space will be through the virtuality of the screen, of the metaverse, of the goggle and the helmet and the VR and all these elements.
Yeah, you can go to 2D to 3D, to 3D to 4D, to 4D to 5D, so it's limitless, basically.
We talk about like how virtuality and blockchain will help to create like kind of architectural simulation, then architectural creation, and the last very important topic for us will be the social simulation. As you all know now, before we build like a building, we of course going to do like a lot of calculation in terms of engineering to see if the building is going to collapse or not. But it's very few time we try to simulate the sociological life of a building. And this is what we do when we play SimCity. So for example, we try to interact through this kind of video game, the social interaction that's going to happen in the space for like 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 1 month. So you can see in this interaction that people are going to watch TV, they are going to watch. You can see if one corner of the house is not in the right position. You can calculate all the paths that people are going to do. You can calculate in the more sociological way if they are like a single family, like they're going to have kids, if they're going to, what will be their neighbor, it's going to be a rich neighbor. So you can simulate in terms of urbanistic this, and this would be thanks to AI and deep learning, which we have already seen some example already. So SimCity in the bigger scale, we said like in terms of urbanism, we can see like how we can simulate full city before like building them. This would be very interesting. And of course can be much more specific. Here like a very old game, but very well done and named like a Film Hospital, where we try to simulate like the way that we organize hospital. You know, as an architect, we cannot think to everything. If we want to build like an airport, hospital, school, very complex program and very complex project, it will be very hard to simulate everything to make sure that everything works perfectly. Most of the time, as soon as the thing is finished and open, people already complain, say, oh, they don't think that this, the corridor is too small, it's too big. through the simulation, through video game, through like the Web3 technology, the VR, we will be able to simulate all this kind of thing and to see and to improve the way that
and we can use video games to improve a physical architecture, but the opposite is true also. You can earn some money to bring your 3D models into video games. So it's both ways.
So behind their playfulness, video game could be like the future of architectural software, and this is a very big changing. We all speak about like a BIM software, but we believe like the big game changing will be video game. Tomorrow, for sure, we are going to calculate like building through like video games. And this is where we arrive to like conclusion for this lecture that we hope you enjoy.
Yeah, so we try to summarize the full lecture. We came from the Web3, then we explore metaverse, augmented reality, virtual reality, and video games. Both of these technology challenge the habits of architecture and design with three main points you have to think about, we hope so. First, the boundary between the physical and virtual worlds has never been so thin. We saw some examples like Pokemon Go and so on. Then design or interior design is more than ever an expanded field, from movie to social media to video games, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D. So it's more and more open. Then, and last, business models open up by blockchain give value to digital spaces. If you want to sell a digital file of a furniture or a space, an experience, a film, or whatever digital, you need blockchain to do it. Otherwise, it's quite impossible because of the copy-paste problem inherent of the first web. We hope that it will help you to challenge your habits and your professions, and we can keep in touch by email, Discord, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever. And we will thank you again for the invitation, and we will wish you an helpful symposium.
Yes, thank you so much, and have a good lecture.